Today we're going to be looking at adding and subtracting fractions. So the first thing we're going to be looking at are adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So the denominator is the bottom number, and here we have the same bottom number. So like means the same. So adding with fractions is the same concept as adding whole numbers. First, we're going to add up the numerators, and we keep the denominators the same, and then we simplify if possible. So here we have 5 over 3 plus 2 over 3. So we see these numbers are the same on the bottom, so that means that we can proceed. So we write the 3, so we don't add the bottom numbers, the 3's together. Okay, this doesn't become 3 plus 3. We just write that our bottom number is a 3 here, and then we're going to add up our top. So if you want, you can write this in between step, but you don't have to. So what we're going to do is add 5 and 2. And then this becomes 7 over 3. So 5 plus 2 is 7, so we have 7 over 3. Okay, our next one, we have the same numerator, which is 9. And we're going to add our top, so we're going to add 5 and 7. So 5 plus 7 is 12, so we have 12 over 9. And then if you can, when you get to this point, you can always simplify your fraction. So here, there's no number that divides both 7 and 3. But on this one, we can divide top and bottom by 3 to simplify the fraction. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So we'd want to always write our fraction in the simplest terms that we can. And then finally here we have 9, and then we have plus, and then in brackets, minus 7 over 9. So first we need to rewrite this without the double sign. So remember from the last chapter, when we have a double sign like this, a plus and a minus, the minus is going to be stronger than the plus. So this turns into minus, and then 7 over 9 like this. Okay? So remember that plus and plus together is plus. Plus and minus, or first the minus and then the plus, is minus. And if we have two minuses, that turns into a plus. Okay, so over here we know our denominator is going to be a 9. And then this time we're going to do our subtraction. So 5 minus 7. 5 minus 7 is minus 2. And then it's over 9. And this one we can't simplify any further. In the next example, we don't have a double sign, but we do have just a subtraction in between. So this is the same as with addition, so we'll write it over 5. If you want to do that in between step, you can write 17 minus 24. Okay, you don't have to do that step. We could go from here, skipping straight to the answer. So 17 minus 24 is going to be negative 7. And I can't simplify this any further, so that would be my answer. Now that's as if they already have the same number on the bottom, okay? But what about if they have unlike denominators, meaning different numbers on the bottom? So this time we have one extra step, which is to get a common denominator. So first we get a common denominator, then we add or subtract the numerators, leaving the denominators the same, reduce if possible. And just a reminder here, no matter where the negative is in the fraction, so if it's written on the top, if it's written in the middle like this, so kind of ambiguously in the middle, or if it's on the bottom, we always move it to the top, okay? It always goes with the numerator. So let's look at this first one. Here we have a 3 and we have a 6. So we want to make a common denominator between these two. Well, we can turn our 3 into a 6. And if we're going to turn our 3 into a 6, we need to multiply it by 2. And when you're working with fractions, whatever you do to the bottom of the fraction, you have to make sure that you do the same thing to the top so that your fraction stays equivalent. And remember that this in the middle negative is going to go with the top. So I'm going to put a little arrow to show that it's going with the top. So here I have negative 2 times 2. So this becomes negative 4 over 6 plus 1 over 6. Okay, so now we can add these up. So we know our bottom's going to be 6. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. And now there is a number that divides both negative 3 and 6. So we're going to divide top and bottom by 3. So we get negative 1 over 2. Okay, let's try the next one. Here we have a 4 and 6. So for a 4 and 6, we could put them both to 12. Okay, so we can turn this into 12, we could turn this into 12, or you might not realize that you could, there's a common denominator of 12 between these two numbers. So kind of like a fall-safe method is you can always, if you don't know what a common denominator would be, you can always just multiply them by each other. So I could multiply this side by 6 and this side by 4, and automatically I'll end up with a common denominator. Okay? So whatever you do to the bottom, you have to make sure you do the same thing to the top. So that means I'm going to have to multiply the top also by 6. And here, whatever I do to the bottom, I multiplied it by 4. So here I'll have to multiply by 4. So 4 times 6 is 24. Now, I could have just multiplied this by 3 and made this 12, but if I didn't realize that, you can always just multiply these two together. All right, then on the top here, here's this negative, which is going with the top. So I have negative 3 times 6, which is negative 18. On this side, I have 6 times 4, again, is going to be 24. On the top, I have 5 times 4, which is going to be 20. So I know my bottom is 24. For my top here, I have negative 18 minus 20, so I get negative 38. And then I simplify if I can. So this one I'm going to divide by 2, top and bottom. So I get negative 19 over 12. And I can't simplify that any further, so that would be my final answer. All right. So for this one, I have a double sign. So I want to get rid of that double sign first. I'm also going to use this opportunity to move my negatives, write them with the top so it's really clear. So I have negative 1 over 3 minus 7 over 8. Okay. All right, now I need a common denominator between my 3 and 8. So I'll multiply this 3 by 8. And I'll multiply this 8 by 3, so I'll multiply them by each other. And if I multiply this one by 8, I also have to multiply the top by 8. So that means that this top I have to multiply by 3. So I have negative 1 times 8, which is negative 8. And I have 3 times 8, which is 24. Then I have 7 times 3, which is 21. And 8 times 3, which is, 24. So on the top, I have negative 8 minus 21. This means negative 29 over 24. And I can't reduce this one. So this is adding and subtracting if I have different denominators. Next is converting mixed fractions to improper fractions. So if I look back up here for a second, anytime I have the top of my fraction that's larger than the bottom of my fraction, that's called an improper fraction. And this means that it's you have a number that is greater than 1, okay? And so we can change an improper fraction like this into a mixed fraction. And we can also change a mixed fraction and turn it into an improper fraction. And we're going to look at both of those. So first we're going to start with a mixed fraction and we're going to go to an improper fraction. So we have 3 steps. So here's our mixed fraction. We're going to multiply the whole number. So the whole number is this number out in front here. We're going to multiply by the denominator of the fraction. So it means we're going to multiply these two together. Then we're going to add that to the numerator. okay? And we'll keep our denominator the same. So let's take a look at those 3 steps. So first thing we're going to do is multiply these 2 together. So 4 times 6, and we get 24. So if we say we want to, so this is our parts. So 4 wholes by 6 gives us 24 parts, okay? Then we want to take that 24 and add it to the parts that we already had. So we already had 5. So 24 plus 5 gives us 29. So if we take 4 wholes and we add it to our 5 parts, we end up with 29 parts, and then we'll put it over 6 because that's our denominator. So multiply here and then add it to what we already had and put it over the denominator. Let's try over here. Now this time we have a -5, but for this process we ignore any negatives and we only put them in our final fraction because otherwise it'll give us a mistake when we go to add these together. So I'm going to ignore this negative for now. I'm just going to multiply the 5 and the 7. So 5 times 7, and that's going to give us 35. And then I'm going to take that 35 and I'm going to add it to this top number here, which is a 3. And I get 38. So I keep my denominator the same, it's a 7. And I'll write 38 on top. And now I need to go back in and add my negative here. Okay, so that's an important step. So this negative goes in here at the final step, but I don't have it up here, okay, when I multiply. Well, we can go the other way around too. So converting improper fractions to mixed fractions. So this time we're going to start with our improper fraction and we're going to go backwards till we get a mixed fraction. Our step 1 is divide the denominator into the numerator to produce the whole number. So first I'm going to do 19 divided by 4 to get us our whole number. Then we multiply the whole number with the denominator and subtract this from the numerator. And then we'll write the remainder in the numerator and keep the denominator. Okay, let's try it out. So this is telling us 19 divided by 4. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. 19 divided by 4. And that's going to give us 4 and a decimal. So 4.75, blah, blah, blah. We don't actually care what this decimal is. All we care about is the 4. Okay, so we're taking this part. Oops. So we're going to take that number, that 4, and we're going to multiply it by whatever our denominator is. In this case, it's 4. Okay, this one here. So 4 times 4, and that gives us 16. So that means if we take the whole number 4, that's taking out 16 of these parts. So what do we have left? So we're going to take our 19 and subtract the 16. That'll be represented by our whole number. And we have 3 parts left. So we're going to write this. We're going to write a whole number 4. And we're going to write a remainder, which is 3, on top of the 4. So 4 3/4. Okay, so I'll just review those steps one more time. So I'll do this division just to find out what my whole number is. So my whole number here is going to be a 4. Then I need to see, well, what will my remainder be if I have a whole number of 4? So I multiply the 4 with whatever my denominator is, so 4 times 4, and I get 16. So that means that of these 19, 16 of them are going to be represented here. But what do I have left? So I'll take this and I'll subtract, and then what I have left is a 3. So I'm going to write it as 4 3/4, like this. Okay, so this one is going to go here, and this one goes there. Okay, so let's try another one. This one over here. Again, we're going to keep the negative for the very end. We ignore it as we're going through this conversion. So first we're going to do this division, 33 divided by 10. And that's going to give us 3.33 blah blah. But we don't care about that. We only care about this whole number here, the 3. So we have our whole number of 3. I can even write it down here. So we know our whole number is going to be 3. And now we need to figure out what the remainder is. We know it's going to be something over 10. Well, how much of this 33 is represented by this whole number of 3? So we're going to take our 3 and we're going to multiply it by 10, and we have 30. So that means 30 out of the 33 is represented here. So we're going to take 33 and subtract the 30, and we have 3 left. So that means our remainder is 3. And then because this was negative, we have to add the negative to our final answer. So we're going to have negative 3 and 3 over 10. Finally, we're going to look at adding and subtracting mixed fractions. If you want to add and subtract mixed fractions, you have to first turn them into improper fractions, okay? Then once you've turned them into improper fractions, then you can add them or subtract them. So this one we have 3 times 3. Remember, we're ignoring this for now. So 3 times 3 is going to be 9. And then adding this one makes it 10. So we have negative 10 over 3. Next we have 2 times 6. That's going to be 12. And we're going to add our 5. So it makes 17. So 17 over 6. So we've gotten rid of our mixed fractions. Now, whenever we're adding, we need a common denominator. So we're going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2 to give us a common denominator of 6. So minus 20 over 6 plus 17 over 6. So now we can add these up and we get negative 3 over 6. We're going to do our simplification where we'll divide the top and bottom by 3. We get negative 1 over 2 as our final answer. We can do the same thing with our next one. Okay, so first of all, we're going to simplify all these extra negatives. So here we have a negative on the bottom. We need to move to the top. And then we have a double negative situation, which is going to turn into a positive. So we get negative 5 over 4 plus 3 and 1 over 5. Then we need to get rid of this mixed fraction and turn it into an improper fraction. So we have 3 times 5, which is 15, and then add 1, which is 16. We have negative 5 over 4 is equal to 16 over 5. Oh, not is equal to. That's too big of an eraser. We need a littler one. There we go. So this is a plus. Next, we need a common denominator. So here we're going to multiply this by 5 and this by 5. And we're going to multiply this by 4 and this by 4. Negative 5 times 5, we get negative 25. Negative 4 times 5, we get 20. 16 times 4, we get 64. And on the bottom, we have 20. So we know our answer is going to be over 20. Negative 25 plus 64, we have 39. And then you can leave it as an improper fraction, or sometimes a question will tell you turn it back into a mixed fraction. Okay, so then we would need to take 39 and divide it by 20. In this case, that gives us 1. So 1 means that we have 20 parts that were converted into our 1. We're going to do 39 minus 20. We have 19 bits left over. So our answer as a mixed fraction will be 1 and 19 over 20. So sometimes they'll ask you for this. Other times it'll just say leave it as an improper fraction. So you'll have 39 over 20. All right, so that's it for the lesson. Now you can go ahead and try your homework.